Hi everyone, my name is Frank Beltran, and today my issue would be Hong Kong and specifically the protests and what the U.S. should do about it. So, if you don't know, for the past 6 years, Hong Kong citizens and activists have been fighting against the growing encroachment of China on its autonomy. It started in 2014 when the first wave of mass protests called the Umbrella Movement, in which it was a response to the broken promise that was made when Britain returned Hong Kong to China in 1997. If you didn't know, Hong Kong used to be a British colony. In 1898, there was a convention between Britain and China in which they made a negotiation deal where Hong Kong will be returned to China in 99 years. Those 99 years came up in 97, and in there, Britain made China give concessions or like guarantees. They're like, hey, they still want to value the democracy, like values of democracy, freedom of speech, right to vote, protest, freedom of the press, these things. And in which China, like I said, in which China made promises to giving Hong Kong citizens the power to elect their leaders, and in plain words like universal suffrage. Over the years, protests would continue slowly but surely would start gaining international attention. Everything would come to head in 2019. So throughout the years, things would still happen. Like one thing that caught international news was booksellers were disappearing that were selling like anti-China um books or propaganda. And another one was where China was trying to implement a national education system that was like showing China a favorable light onto Hong Kong, the students. So in 2019, the second mass wave of protests came, but this time it was bigger than before. The protest was in response to an extradition bill that would allow citizens who committed crimes in Hong Kong could be extradited to the mainland China to face punishment for their crimes. The Hong Kong citizens saw this as the last straw, as this was China effectively getting rid of their legal system in Hong Kong and being subjugated to China's legal system. Now, there's a whole story on how like this was actually happening. It wasn't directly with Hong Kong. It was a Hong Kong citizen that had committed a crime in Hong Kong and had left to Taiwan, and so China was negotiating an extradition bill with Taiwan, and they were trying to in terms of that they were also trying to get one with Hong Kong as well. So what should the U.S. do? As this is the main thing. Now, the U.S. response to these protests cannot be rash or impulsive, meaning we should not just go in without a plan or see this as an opportunity to stick it to China. I believe the U.S. should look at this through the human rights lens and a democracy lens, as recently it seems around the world people are losing faith in democracy and faith in U.S. leadership at an all-time, and faith in U.S. leadership is at an all-time low, thanks to our president. First, the U.S. should show support for the protests any way they can, whether that's making a statement by Congress or the president expresses support for the protesters to fight for democracy. Two, I think the U.S. should use leverage it has with China in terms of negotiating trade deals or other things. I'm sure there's things China's want that we can give them in order for them to back off. For that second one, I think the U.S. should bring in allies in order to get things done to put pressure on China to back off, as international cooperation is always better than just going in alone, I think. Third, I think the U.S. should go to the UN and state the case to the UN Security Council and the Human Rights Council. I understand the U.S. withdrew from the UN HRC, but the point being is to bring as much international attention as possible. As the U.S. being the most powerful country in the world, it isn't hard for people to notice something if the U.S. is shouting about it. Also, this helps the U.S. as well, as whatever a country is doing something, they're always something they want to get something back in return. Self-interest. One, they get to fight back against their most powerful rivals to put a dent in China and kind of embarrass them on the world stage, I guess you can say. Put the world on notice that the U.S. is still capable of leadership, gain some of that respect back, and finally put the U.S. back on the map as leaders of democracy. And so, that's it for my presentation. Thank you guys for listening. Goodbye.